from our invited speaker, but also the discussion and the panel interventions. So the idea was to have in this event this year a focus on data steward and the data stewardship, and a kind of discussing around the roadmap for Portugal, focusing on what we are doing in our institutions, what we can do at a national level, guided by national bodies. How can we work together to build a kind of network of data stewards to work and to develop skills, plans, etc. So this is why we have this panel. It's a panel with two parts, one with an invited speaker, and then we have a panel with invited representatives of institutions. So let's start with Curtis Sharma, that I invite to come here. It's he lives in the Netherlands. He's not from the Netherlands. He works in TU Delft, and currently is a project manager in Skills for ISCTE, that in fact was already mentioned today in one of the flash talks. He also previously worked in the University of Cambridge as research data coordinator. He will present himself better, or with other relevant components from the curriculum, but what is important is that he is representing these Skills for ISCTE project, that in fact is working on Competências Center and a kind of support materials and support skills to guide countries on building these data stewardship networks. So we will hear from Curtis about the work and the experience from Curtis, and also the work from Skills for ISCTE project. And thank you for coming to Portugal.
Great, thank you, Pedro. Before I start, before I start, let me say, if I speak too quickly, which I have a habit of doing, do let me know. Yeah, so yeah, I tend to speak a bit quickly, so do let me know if I'm going too quickly, and I will slow down. Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here today, not least because it's a lot better weather than in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is really wet and cold right now. So thanks again to Pedro for inviting me, and Philippa as well, making it possible for me to be here. But I really want to say a really special thank you to Clara from ISCTE, who we met earlier this year, and which kind of kicked off this whole process. So thank you very much for that. Yes, so I am at TU Delft with actually a consortium of the 4 technical universities in the Netherlands called 4TU, the 4TU Federation, and I'm based at the repository, the data repository.
Check this out, because it's not working.
A bit closer, maybe?
Yes, closer, please.
I need to project a bit more.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, so I'm at this federation between the 4 technical universities in the Netherlands, called the 4TU Federation, and I'm based at the repository, which has now become more than a repository. It's a community. It involves training and development and all that sort of thing. And I am working with Skills for ISCTE as a project manager, community manager. But I also continue to research, which is fun, but also helps me to be able to think about things from the researcher point of view, which I feel is important for this. So let's move on then. So just a tiny overview of what the Skills for ISCTE project is trying to do. So we all know there's a problem with capacity and expertise when it comes to open science and research data management and everything that works around that. And therefore things can become a little bit unclear for those of us who are supporting researchers and for researchers themselves. So the project is looking to sort of clarify these things, and also to work on career paths as well. So there's a lot happening. Because a lot of times we have people who are really good at supporting researchers, but then they're just a research assistant, or they come in from the outside and then they disappear because there is no career path for them. So it's trying to bring everything together in an ecosystem which can support open science and research data at some sort of let's say, we always need to think about the local context, but to bring things up to a certain standard within a way that it can support the research in the way you want to. We started with 44 partners in 18 countries. There are a couple more partners that have now been added to the consortium across Europe. I don't know if you can see how the writing is quite small from there, but it's quite, yeah. And it's a lot of fun working with people from different countries and meeting different people like that. So just a quick overview of the work packages. Of course, number one is project management. In work package 2, we're looking at creating career profiles. For instance, there are career profiles for researchers, career profiles for data stewards, career profiles for other people involved in open science. And we'll talk a little bit about data stewardship in a moment. I try to use the term RDM professional rather than data steward because it can be more inclusive in that way, but data steward is a term that's going around, so that might slip out a bit more often. So work package 3 is looking for training to train those working in policy making to make decisions informed on what is happening in research. So for policy to be based on what is happening actually. And I don't know how they're designing that training, but they're doing that. Work package 4 is looking at curricula and learning paths. So there are curricula being developed to train data stewards and to train other professionals working in research and research data management. So that's another way we're hoping to support the whole RDM management and data stewardship idea. So the curricula will be, of course, it won't be content itself. It'll be curricula, and within the local context, then different bodies can interpret the curriculum to suit their own needs. But there will be certain things that would guide the process, just so that things are not missed. Yes, and open science skills for professionals working in research infrastructures as well, and those working in thematic communities, which can be. I'm not sure what examples of thematic communities they're working on, but for instance, in my work project, in my work package, I'm looking at AI and health and technology, and they might be focusing on different ones as well. Professional networks for lifelong learning. That's the one that I'm working on, and we're looking at professional networks across Europe. One of the things we mapped we did a mapping of professional networks across Europe that exists, identified gaps, and then we tried to see how we can support the development of networks in those places where there were gaps. There's also development of new open science communities, which Ines spoke about earlier. And then there is a development of data stewardship networks, creation of new networks, bringing together of existing and new networks. Then there are particular focuses on artificial intelligence and also on health and technology, looking at evaluating fair practices in these areas. And of course, there is the fellowship program, which you may have heard of. There's a fellowship program for continuing exchange of knowledge between institutions by having a fellow visit from another institute to learn something and develop their skill and bring it back to their own institution. The first call is just closed, but the second one will be out in December, which will be publicized. Work package 7 is one that is really important to the whole thing, and this is the idea of competence centers, which is quite a contentious term because what really constitutes a competence center and what form it should take has been a subject of debate. In my view, it has to do with training, but it has to do with support and sustainability, and it has to be some sort of coordination point as well, and it should be an entity that people can trust in within their own local context. Whether this is a distributed abstract body rather than a physical one is still something that's being debated. But then again, things are up to what's happening in the local contexts. Work package 8 is looking at synergies, as it says, but this is also looking to bring streams of funding together to work with supporting and sustaining whatever the outcomes of the Skills for EOSC project, among other things. So working with research infrastructures and so on as well to see how we can communicate what we've created. So. The main thing I'm here to talk about today is task 6.3.1, professional networks for lifelong learning, and harmonizing and creation of new data steward networks. When I say data steward networks, again, my preferred term is professionals in research data management, but that's a bit long to say, so I'll stick with data stewards. So what we are to do, we need to create new data steward networks, at least, well, total networks in all, we're meant to create 7, but we've already done that with the open science community networks. And right now we're working on a few of them. And we're hoping to get as many as we can handle, because we can have too much work as well. Harmonizing, we'll talk about a bit as well. That's kind of bringing things together in a way that different networks can communicate with each other and exchange ideas. And we'll come to that a bit later. So the purpose of a network. So as we all know there's a capacity issue with open science and research data management, and an expertise issue, because it is so wide and so varied that we just cannot provide exactly what is needed for everyone. And there's no formal training that can cover all of this. And we may get closer one day, but as it is now, it's just not possible. So we're hoping that these professional networks can address these things to some extent, where we can have, solutions through discussion. When networks share issues, commonalities, then they can probably come up with an issue. When something works well for data stewardship in one area or one institution, then it may work well in another institute as well. Exchange of good practices, which we talked about a little bit earlier, over lunch that is. Talking with your colleagues in different institutions to find out how they do things. Dissemination of new resources, new developments in the area, and of course a platform for new opportunities, whatever those opportunities might be. And a chance of shaping your own role as a data professional, as an RDM data professional, because that is needed right now at the moment. And of course to amplify voices, to raise any issues that might need addressing, that those who have the power to address just cannot hear it, because it's my problem and no one else knows about it. So what is the role of skills for EOSC? I'm sorry, this is a little bit small, but I'll read it out for you. So one is helping to create these professional profiles. So the data steward profile, for instance, which is quite wide, but what is being done is a minimum viable skill set is being created that other things can be added on to. Next is, well, to identify the gaps, which we have done this far. The only thing that was not included was citizen science, which is a pity, but that was not meant to be covered. It would have taken a lot more time than we had in the project. So at the end of the presentation, I will have some links here where you can find the results, like for instance, the minimum viable skill set in Zenodo, and also the mapping of the professional networks. You can see for yourself. So what we've done, so then we go to stakeholder engagement, again in local context, talk with people in different countries, find out what is happening there, what's their feeling about data stewardship and networks. Do they feel it can work for them? Is this desire there to do that, and how we can work with them. Then we try to bring these initiatives together within the task team for this group. We try to bring these initiatives together by collecting information of different people who are maybe alone, or maybe a group, or maybe an institution, who are thinking about starting a data stewardship network, and try to bring that together into some sort of nascent initiative. And of course, advocacy and facilitation, which is what we try to do to represent. So we have a meeting. We had a meeting with the Minister of Science and Research, for instance, in France, together with CNRS. I hope to be here to also advocate a bit for that, and we're working with other initiatives as well to advocate for the network if it is so desired, and also the facility to work to bring people together as well. We're also producing some tools, one of which is the Data Steward Network Starter Kit, which is also available in Zenodo. And this starter kit, there's quite a bit of background, the concept of networks and network versus community, and also practical steps in which to take to start creating a network, and steps can be taken to sustain that network and to understand the life cycle of the network or community and how things might change. And yes, the harmonization of networks, again, to bring sort of creating a community of networks so that ideas can be transferred and more experienced networks can share what they're doing with less experienced networks, to try and be able to bring everything up to a certain standard, and share knowledge, again, always relating back to the local context and how that might be interpreted. And then there's the idea of the National Competence Center, which, as I said, is a contentious sort of phrase, but we'll be hoping to establish, not to establish, but to designate or to have different bodies either come together to create this idea of a National Competence Center or to take the responsibility of it. And we would hope that this National Competence Center, or what it has been called in the EOSC symposium last month, National Node, where that node can be a coordination point to support the network that has been created in different ways, whether that be through developments, whether that be through facilitation or infrastructure, for meetings, for promoting events, for wherever there's appropriate funding to be able to deal with that efficiently, and to serve as a sort of a connection line between those people who are doing things bottom up and those people who are doing things, top down. So the question is, who is a data steward? Of course, this is a very big question. As you can see here, it's not very straightforward to define who is a data steward. I'm taking this definition from Skills for EOSC, and this is from a survey that was run in Italy recently. So it's quite wide. My definition was, a data professional who's working in open science, really. That's quite wide. But as you can see here, there's not really any one person that can do this, although I know that there are people, even in this room, who are trying to do all of this at once. Being a curator, being an advising on GDPR, advising on legal stuff, advising on how best to store things on metadata. I've been there myself, and I know it's not that easy. So, and then of course you have the soft skills where you need to be able to communicate and put people in touch with other people, and understand where they're coming from within their own disciplines. And if you're working at a university that's, TU Delft is a technical university, but then you may have a different university where everything is being done, and you have to explain to people things about like indigenous rights and that kind of thing. And that's, what do you do? How do you do that? So it's quite big. But in any way, so in running, in trying to find out and identify who are data stewards and trying to find out to allow people to identify themselves as data stewards, this is the kind of wide definition that we took. So at the moment, we're working with a few initiatives. One is the Italian network, which is in bold because that's happening right now, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that. Two is a Nordic network, so they have decided to work together instead of on a national context, because, for instance, Finland already has their equivalent entity of FCT, and they have quite a community already, and they don't want to have another one, so they prefer to join with another country close by to create this network. In Norway, for instance, they have a data curators network, and they don't really want to create another national network. So then they're working together in this area. The Irish network is Sonrai, I believe. It's not quite established yet, but there's a roadshow going on. Similar, I think, to what you're doing here in Portugal, to gather things about feasibility, desire, and all that kind of thing, and motivation to get it going. And finally, there's a Portuguese network. So the people I've put here, I've put here is who I had contact with first. So that's my contact with the efforts in the country. It doesn't mean that I know that these are the only people who are doing it. Of course not. And now I'm happy to work as well with FCT, which are with Philippa and whoever else, if we can to make things happen. So I think I would like to talk a bit more about the Italian network, because that's happening live right now, and I think there might be things from there that we can take if we're looking at a data steward network in Portugal. So the first thing was, of course, to find where there might be gaps, and then find a data steward. Definition of a data steward. So there was a survey that was put out in Italy. It was, and there were 11 questions and 1 free text. And these are some of the examples. So it was really to find out who identifies as a data steward and what they thought about data stewardship overall. And there were responses from, I can leave that there a little bit later for you, a little bit longer for you to just read a few of it. So it's really trying to it's trying to include as many people as possible and not to exclude anyone. Again, yeah, the definition is difficult, so people have to feel whether they identify as a data steward or not. And the same data steward, of course, is still quite new, and people may think about it as more of something as industrial or in the private sector, or someone who's just taking care of data in that way. So there were 55 respondents from 40 institutions, which was really a high level of engagement. That was, I think because the designated competence center in Italy, ICDI, because they're also the coordinators for Skills for EOS project, they kind of had a lot of, they knew the channels and they had quite a lot of opportunity to promote this this survey. It was hosted on the EU survey website. So then they had the kickoff meeting on the 7th of November, and 50 attendees were there again, which was a really good turnout. I did not go in person. Again, it was all in Italian, and I only needed to give a 15-minute talk, so that would not have been good, environmental thinking to do that. And a lot of questions. There was a lot of enthusiastic participation with people asking questions. Again, yeah, I'm here, but what really is a data steward? How do I know I really belong here? What is the organizational profile? Because a lot of data stewards or people who act as data stewards in Italy are actually kind of contracted from outside, and they just come in based on a project, and then they leave again. So they want to understand where they could fit within the organization, how they can fit within academia, and develop themselves further. Other questions were, how do you sustain these roles? What sort of permanence is there? Do we just go off back into research or go off into some other job when the project is over? And then again, they wanted to know particularly about training for thematic or specific areas, because there's a lot of training available up to a certain point, but then after that, there's no more. And of course, that is because of resources and how to get these things done. So they were quite motivated, and the question, of course, now is to try and keep that motivation and give them some answers as soon as possible, so that they don't just wander off and say, well, yeah, this is not going to work. So they had support from ICDI, and they're getting support. So ICDI arranged the kickoff meeting. They're doing the infrastructure hosting online, and they're doing event organization for them going forward, and they're also doing publicity and advocacy for the network as a way to support them as the National Competence Center. So how is it? What they're doing in practice? They will be piloting the network starter kit, which is for all outputs from Skills for EOSC. Even though it's already submitted, it goes through a kind of a public consultation, co-creation phase before it is really finally published. So we're hoping that this piloting will help us with that. It's volunteer-led at the moment, the network, and that's by Valentina Pasquale, who is at IIT, and she's involved in a few other projects as well in Skills for EOSC, and also by Giulia Caldoni, who she's involved in the other aspect of the task as well, which is the harmonization part of it with the different networks. So what they're doing at the moment is they're just using a mailing list to communicate with those people who have expressed interest, and to disseminate any information and to arrange meetings and whatever else they need to arrange. They will probably use a Slack channel later, but of course there are limitations with that. If you have a free trial, then anything over 90 days is deleted. But they have an existing website which they're using, and I think they are leaning a lot. Okay, let's not skip. So what they plan to do is to have an online meeting every 2 months, and to have a topic of presentation, presented by someone from a different institution, and then can be discussed. Or if someone has a problem they want to solve, then they can discuss that as well. And then they will have new and newsworthy things to discuss as well. They will try to organize or point towards different resources of training and that kind of thing. And then they will do some collaboration and probably have some workshops to try and to exchange ideas to solve some sort of common problem as well. These are just some of the examples. And they're using an existing website to host this data steward network. They are leaning a lot on a data stewardship network in the Netherlands called the DTL, Data Tech Life, I think, Data Stewards Interest Group. The link is also later on. They started off as the local node for Elixir in the Netherlands, but they developed into a full-blown data steward network. And it's no longer just about life sciences. They also do technical sciences, social sciences, and humanities. And they have a website on the DTL page where they have everything is public, all their meetings, all their minutes, everything is there. And I think the Italian Data Steward Network is looking at something like this as they go on. So a little bit about the starter kit. So there is a section about identifying as a data steward. What to think about when conceptualizing a network, whether it is a network versus a community. I mean, there are some overlaps, but there are some differences as well. And how to grow an existing network if you have one already, how to sustain that network, and what sort of work do you need to do for member research, how identifying the persona, identifying those people who will be motivated enough to be in the network, and then thinking about roles and responsibilities. What is the social infrastructure needed for the network? What positions must be filled? There is a bit of theoretical background as well, which really goes into like positionalities, stuff about, of course, things like codes of conduct, a lot of theoretical background. Probably a little bit more than I would like, but it is helpful. But the good thing is that there are practical steps for each section that you can follow. And of course, we're looking to improve this all the time. And there are case studies, one of which is the DTL network I just talked about, and there's the data steward network in Flanders, in Belgium, and also the local node of Elixir in the UK. And there are more things. So the next stage of the task is the harmonizing, and this is really important as well, because what we're trying to do here is to bring initiatives together within the RDA. So there's an interest group called the RDA Professionalizing Data Stewardship Interest Group, which I'm sure some of you here are aware of. And there was a session at the RDA plenary in Gothenburg where my colleague, some of my colleagues, Aoife Coffey from University of Cork, I mentioned that Irish effort earlier, and Giulia Caldoni as well from Bologna, and a few others from University of Vienna, and also from Canada and the US. And we were thinking about that session was about trying to bring different networks together so that they can support each other globally. At the same time, I'm working on trying to bring networks together in Europe. So it seemed a good idea to bring those two efforts together. And that's what we're doing right now. Yeah, and the main idea for that, so technically it's meant for networking and knowledge exchange for the larger data steward network group. So whatever is being done there, it is the task of this task group 7. I've put the link below as well, to provide knowledge exchange and networking. However, it fits exactly with what we're trying to do with the data steward networks and network initiatives in Europe and across the world. So we were able to secure the use of this group, of this task group for our purpose. Yeah, so the main thing from my point of view is to try to bring established networks together with new initiatives to see how we could do some cross-pollination of ideas and get other networks going and exchange ideas about sustainability as well, which is the big thing in anything to do with RDM and open science, because a lot of people are doing this in their spare time. Yeah, and we need to keep this, in order to keep this going, one of the main things we hope to do is to host at least one session at a plenary every year, and maybe one per year is enough. But we're hoping, because then we need to do this in order to keep the visibility of it going, so that we can determine whether it's viable to keep this network going, and to let networks and other people trying to do things know that it exists. Yeah, so sustainability. The activities of the RDA group, all the outputs that we're doing in Skills for EOSC, and of course looking at support from national competence centers. And it is through these three ways that we hope we'll be able to sustain the networks that we help to facilitate and to work with in their creation. So this is just a schematic of how things might look. So you have the Data Studio network, and then on the one hand we have the RDA, and on the other hand we have the National Competence Center. And it is the job of this task as well, to bring the networks in contact with their National Competence Center, whenever they're established. Of course, the project ends at the end of August 2025, and we hope that things will keep going on. But whatever projects we establish within the time of networks we establish within the time of a project, then we need to bring those bodies together. And so it would be great to know who will be the designated, or who would volunteer to be the National Competence Center in Portugal. Will that be you? I think. Yeah, maybe. All right. I think, that's just about, I've got a few minutes to spare. And these are the links, and I'm sure Pedro will share them with you. Yeah. Obrigado.
Experiência. Vamos para aqui. Okay, thank you, Curtis. So I now invite Clara Boavida, Jorge Noro, João Moreira to come to the stage also for the panel. But in this process they are coming, we can have space for one or two quick questions. Then we will have a debate. Curtis will talk again and react also to the work that we are doing in our institutions based on this guidance from Skills for EOSC. But if you have questions, so we will have like one or two. You can make it in English or in Portuguese. Do you have any question, any doubt that you have related with the presentation? We can put it now or later in the discussion, because Curtis will be part of the panel discussion and he will react also to our presentations. Any remark for now? Okay, later. So Curtis, join. Okay, perfect. Ask a question.
As part of the Skills for EOSC project, you are defining the network and the community.
Yep.
And the differences between both. In your opinion, what is the difference in terms of commitment of members and easy management? Are we interested in a community or in a network?
So I think the differences, I think, between the community and the network, a community comes together for a certain purpose. For instance, an open science community, they come together to advocate open science. And that's a definite goal that they have. The network, on the other hand, a professional network is more of something where people go to find solutions for common issues, or to gain new training or understand things that they wouldn't get in a formal way. So the community will take, for me, more commitment, and ideally should have a manager, and should have certain roles in place, and probably needs to have champions as well to advocate for the community. So that's more of a commitment. With the network, you can have regular meetings where people present their issues, and then you can talk about it and you can share things as well. But the network is more loose and would, in my opinion, require less commitment than a community.
Okay.
Considering the skills for IOSC, the work package 2 specifically, this open science training policy, evidence-based or public administration, are they available or they will be provided only by the National Competence Center or European Competence Center?
Are you asking if they'll be available to the wider public?
Yeah. Part of the question is there any format, final output for open science training, evidence-based for policies, for instance?
Yes, it will once, so the project ends at end of August 2025. Some tasks will end before. And as soon as their deliverable date is due, things will be uploaded onto Noro. I'm not sure how they plan to publicize that so that people know it's there, but you should be able to find it, I believe, in the IOSC marketplace as well, from the IOSC marketplace. But everything will be available publicly on Noro.
Considering the actions, who will provide the trainings? The National Competence Centers or the European Competence Center? Or?
Yeah, so the training would be provided by the National Competence Center. There are sessions within the task, within the project, to train trainers who will be associated with the National Competence Center.
Just in the middle, if you want. Okay, perfect. So let's move now. I invite you to think about questions, is also to think about sharing any input related with this work on data stewardship in your organizations. We will hear from three use cases in terms of University of Coimbra, ISCTE, and University of Minho, and then we will hear from a national body about the roadmap also from FCT-FCCN. Just 1 minute to highlight before I give the floor to Clara Boavida. What we are doing it's important to mention, some of you know because you are part of the training working group from RDM Fórum, but we decided to do this year a series on data stewardship in research institutions. We call it Towards a Roadmap for Portugal. The idea was to run 3 events before the RDM Fórum, but we only did one event. But mainly there are 2 objectives. One is to deepen the knowledge about institutional programs and national stewardship initiatives. So to know more about what others are doing in different countries from Europe, and what are the plans at the national level, and then also try to define an action plan for us in Portugal. Learn with the kind of benchmarking, and then come up with a plan for Portugal. We started with having a case study from Austria, University of Vienna. It was, in fact, a kind of 2 case studies in the same, because it was the case study from University of Vienna, what they are doing in University of Vienna, and in fact University of Vienna are guiding a kind of roadmap for Austria, and they are also delivering some national things to Austria. And the idea is to, at the end of 3 or 4 meetings with Austria and other cases, we also thought about Italy as a case, Ireland, maybe the Netherlands, so and also a case related with Elixir and the data stewardship trainings that they do in Elixir, so a specific domain. And then produce a report on lessons learned and recommendations. We did the first one, around 45 participants. You see here a screenshot from the session, and where we also have the colleagues from Austria that did the presentation, three colleagues. And it was so relevant. So we don't have any report. One thing that we did, and the structure of these events is the same every session. The idea is to have a first moment where the case study presenters present and detail what they are doing in their countries or organizations, and then we split into groups and we will discuss about some highlights, some lessons learned, what is feasible in Portugal and what is almost impossible to implement in Portugal. So these are some, we do it with using Jamboard. These are some notes that we took from the highlights from the models from Austria and the model from the program from University of Vienna. They have, what is relevant here is that they have a postgrad course on data stewardship, and they presented, and there are some notes here. What I think is important was the network that they are building around this, those people that are part of the course. And we also had a second part of the discussion about like a kind of reaction, what is almost impossible to implement and what we can replicate in Portugal. So more institutional policies or more training, a certified data stewardship course like they have in Austria, maybe we can replicate in Portugal. So what is almost impossible is to have a data steward in each school or department, so different comments. So we are not in that phase of producing recommendations or lesson learned, but we are in this process. We just want to highlight this work. So if you want to be part of it, we will send invitations for the 2 or 3 other events that we want to do. We already send invitations to Ireland and to Italy. We just need to schedule properly. And here are the persons that are from the training working group that are more responsible to organize this series on data stewardship in research institutions. So now I give the floor to Clara, Boavida. So these are really short presentations. So, and yes.
So, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Pedro for inviting me to be here and to contribute to the discussion on the possibility of building and developing the network of data stewards. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to share with you our goals and our work for the coming months. And now I'm going to give you a bit of context of what are we doing now in ISCTE. As most of you probably know, we are concluding the migration to a new building of researchers, research units and services related to research activities to the same space. This building gathers all these actors and has available 9,000 square meters. And we believe that will promote collaboration and interdisciplinarity. So these good conditions provide optimal conditions to promote the network, the internal network. Apart from these, we are concluding the installation of data center with the capacity to meet the needs in terms of data storage, backups, and long-term preservation. ISCTE is very keen as well in reusability of data and setting up services in order to reuse data and setting up service to meet these needs. Finally, we are providing certification, the certification of the internal data stewards, not only staff, but also researchers and PhD students. It's also a priority and a strategic goal for the coming months. And about these, I would like to give you a brief description of the course that I had the opportunity to attend. It was essential for data support course, and this course can be done in 2 different ways: online only, that is open and free to everyone, and the full course that includes the online modules and 2 face-to-face daily face-to-face working days. Between these two face-to-face working days, we had to deliver 6 assignments, 4 of them done with other participants of the course. I had 2 different working groups, and the 2 final assignments where we have to present them on the second face-to-face working day. So the course started on 18th of April, and it was in Delft. And the second one was in 1st June in Surf, in Utrecht. And it was a very good experience, mainly the interaction between the different participants from different research areas, and the exchange of knowledge was very good experience, because we learned how to do have the same output, but doing in a different way. So in terms of effort, the two face-to-face working days were full of expert presentations, and we had to deliver the 6 assignments that I told you before, and we had to give feedback to peers assignments as well, and interact with the coaches. To conclude this presentation, I would like to invite all of you, if you are interested on this discussion and collaborate with us in this possible, in creating this possible network, reach us, let us know your motivations to make this network a reality. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, you all. I'm here before you wearing 2 hats. My name is Jorge Noro. I'm coming from the University of Coimbra, and I am the executive coordinator of the Institute for Interdisciplinary Research on one side, and on the other side, actually, I'm part of the highly motivated volunteer agents at the University of Coimbra that are, well, facing and trying to cope some issues related with this data management. We are here recognizing that research data management is an emerging challenge. The University of Coimbra started to develop some policies and open an academic discussion between partners where we can have the feedback from the academic community, and we are trying to somehow to implement these task forces and people that come from different research units to contribute to new solutions, to address these challenges on research data management. I think we all easily recognize this emergent challenge, also the new emerging careers that we are talking here about. And one of those, of course, is the data steward. Before I, briefly share some thoughts on, how we can look at the profile of the data stewards, I thought it was a good idea to share also some benchmarking made in this most relevant already mentioned action from Pedro Príncipe, and we have the opportunity to see how other universities are dealing with it. So, for instance, in Delft, they have this data steward team that actually supports and helps the implementation either on faculties and on the library. They have very well defined the profile of the data stewardship and how it can contribute to the solution. But it was also presented on this session on organization of data stewardship services. Also another example. So we have, for instance, here in Purdue University, this different organic display, let's say this way. For instance, in Aalto back in Finland, we have the researchers pointed out as also researchers, data managers. So we have different approaches and different profiles, and as Curtis already said, of course, it depends on the organization where it is implemented and the cultural context, of course. So we have here our very well-known data lifecycle. Unfortunately, the presentation lost the animation, so okay, you have at one take, but okay. We have this data lifecycle, and we try to put some examples how to do it. Not only to recognize all the stages on the data lifecycle, but also some instruments that we can use to actually do the operations related to each stage. I suppose we all easily recognize that handling data in a structured, organized and documented manner can ensure better quality either on the process and on the data. The integrity and also long-term usability. The researchers don't have to be experts, but we believe that some basic competence actually contributes to research responsible and innovation. So it's to the integrity also of the research itself and for the data related. So back in the University of Coimbra, we are here. We are actively participating on IOSC as a delegate member. We actually participate in some subgroups and subtasks also on this forum, at the RDM. We participate also in other forums where open science is being approached frequently, like the IARMA, for instance, is the European Association for Research Managers and Administrators, for instance, and other forums. We have some concrete actions by now. Some of them is, for instance, delivering proposals, specific proposals and recommendations internally to the Rectory, where, for instance, for what could be a policy of the data management back in the University of Coimbra, not only for the organic units, but also and mainly for the research units. Also, you have heard before, I suppose, all of you, hopefully, the presentation of Inês Almeida, that presented this, let's say, raising, willing to implement an open science community, which we are very keen of it. She is also part of this highly motivated volunteer group to work on these deals. And we have been doing some specific other things. We have some back at some research units. We have some people already, researchers or not, because we have different profiles. Some of us are librarians, some of us are science managers, some of us are researchers, but we are already implementing, not in a very structured, organized, formal way, but for instance, inside of each research unit, we have some very good examples of training sessions, for instance, and to not only to raise awareness, but also how to do it. I can recall Brundiret and others back in ICNES and other research units where we actually provide some specific expert training to develop some data management plans, for instance. So, in my last remarks, I would say that, as I told you, researchers may not be data experts, but basic competence will actually contribute to some responsible research and innovation. Research data management, I think this is good to underline, is also, besides all which are talking, we are dealing here mainly, I would say, as looking under the angle of the management. But actually, the research data management is itself a scientific area. And we have some people studying in a scientific way with a different lens. For instance, data architecture, data modeling, data storage and stuff, they themselves constitute as research areas. This seems nice. What about this guy here? Hopefully, yeah. We are talking about this fellow here, and this fellow wonders either which career he or she has to choose, research services or researcher or something in between. Also, how to deal with the ecosystem where he's embedded. Sometimes, very often, we are facing some issues relating to the blurry services boundaries. We don't know exactly, like we discussed early in the morning, about the commission of the confidentiality from the medicine faculty. And relationships also demands for huge effort. But also he or she has to deal with highly demanded training and to deal with complex projects. And Curtis already underlined this, because ideally we would have a data steward that has high competencies on programming and data storage and management and relationships and communication, and well, it seems a lot to one guy or one girl. So yeah, this is one of the, I would say this is one of the issues on this, the role of this data steward. So I suppose no one is quite keen to very, very fast say, I would like to be a data steward. I'm not sure about this. It depends on the profile. So this will result, this is a biodata training data stewards image that I took. Thank you, Pedro. resulting in this data steward profile. Is a proposal like many others. I just point this out because I want to take from here the policy research and infrastructure's 3 dimensions, because we believe that to be effective, and with this I'm closing my remarks, national data stewards networks, which will somehow contribute to the European data steward networks, will have to attend to the policy with obviously broad institutional commitment. We'll have to deal with the issues related to research, not only the expertise as mentioned before, but also becoming available some tools, standards, and workflows. And obviously, to make it happen, to make it possible, the infrastructures, having proper software, proper hardware, proper digital services, and technical infrastructures. This will allow some strategy. This will allow to have more transparent solutions, more collaborative solutions. Here I would like to underline that for us, as we discuss this internally, it is most important that we contribute to change the paradigm, for instance, the funding paradigm of science, because while we will have a competitive model, a competitive paradigm, we will always face these issues. We must try to shift a little bit to more towards a collaborative model, to a collaborative paradigm. Otherwise, this is nonsense, because we will have competitive funding, and we are trying to aware people to be collaborative. But at the end of the day, people will ask, but who will win the award? Me or the guy that is using my data? So I think the paradigm should be revised, and we have this great opportunity to contribute to this. Also in the research, make it accessible, easier to understand, contributing to the body of knowledge, of course, and make it possible supporting framework. This will ensure that data policies will be aligned with the researchers' data. This will ensure that the researchers' data will be aligned with the data infrastructures and the equipments. And of course, at the end of the day, this will ensure that data policies could be aligned with the data services. That's it. Thank you.
So after, I just have one. I have one. So we have ISCTE, Coimbra, and now Minho, and then yes, FCT-FCCN. So just quickly also to highlight some of the work that Minho is doing. So we have a clear goal or a vision. But we are defining the clear plan to deliver. So it's important to highlight that Minho have a research data management and sharing strategy defined in 2017 and 18, and we are with this integrated vision delivering some of the services and the activities from this strategy. Some we already achieve, others we have plans, and others maybe we will discard them. But one important is the data repository that we have, and because of the data repository, we will not solve all the issues and all the needs from the researchers regarding research data management, but at least we will unlock some of the limitations that they have and also contribute to good practices in terms of data management. And one of the important things that we have from the roadshows that we are delivering is that in those roadshows is where the place where we also define the way that the research centers will manage the data and the way that they will organize the work internally, and these are relevant moments to the boards of the research of those centers to identify if they have people or not, if they need our support, or if they just will say to the library that you need to be our data curator because we don't have people to do that. So this is already an important moment for us to start making more clear our plan related with data steward in Minho. Then other two services that will contribute, one in the pilot phase related with the electronic lab notebooks, but the other one that we already presented, the Open DMP, that is already in production, will be really relevant to contribute to this process, because we'll provide some capacity building, some opportunities to support those that are playing as a kind of data steward in the research centers. Then the support, the advice, and the training that we are delivering from specific training activities, the schools, the Open Science Summer School and the Open Data Winter School, the seminars that we deliver for the doctoral school, and some other kinds of support materials. To close, so these activities that we are running integrated in the strategy are contributing for us to improve the plan for data stewardship in Minho. So the data repository, for example, is where we are highlighting the creation of data curators teams in the research centers, if they have it or not, if they want to create that position. Some of them are kind of research manager that are also have some skills. In some cases they are defining that for the laboratories, for the research groups, for the research units, depending on the structure of each research center. Then the tools, the OpenDMP, for example, it facilitates a lot the management activity, but it also, we have OpenDMP as a pedagogical tool for researchers in terms of skills for data management. Then, one important venue that we have are the meetings with the research centers. We decided to have a periodical meeting with the boards of the research centers to identify their needs. Our idea is to create a kind of ambassador of good open science and RDM practices in the boards of the research center, and people that they select to be a kind of ambassadors, people that we can have as ambassadors in the research centers, that we can train, that we can work with. And these meetings are really relevant. We have a second vision about these meetings, because we want to keep those meetings with the research, with the boards, the directors of the research centers, but the idea is that in parallel we create a working group with the people that the directors identify as people that we can have, call it data curator, data stewardship, etc., that then we can work with and train. And then from all the activities that we do, for example, the Data Winter School is really where we address the training needs and where we identify the needs that we have. And in fact, in those training schools that are target to PhD students and to young researchers, we also have people that are acting as data curators or data stewardship in the research center. So, and we are in fact identifying that we need to move forward. So, just to highlight that, based on this, the activities that we are running in the strategy, we are identifying better a plan to relate it with the data stewards in our university. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is João Mendes Moreira. I'm the head of scientific information of FCCN. And I would like to share some of the ideas for the roadmap. In fact, they have been developed together with many of you, and I hope you identify some of the ideas, because this is a result of all these meetings we have had in the past. So this slide is only for Curtis, because he doesn't know us very well. But imagine we are NWO, SURF, Narcis, DANS, and also the consortia that licenses content. And it is probably one of the only funding agents in the world that has together infrastructures and the funding part, which is fun, but also very challenging. Anyway, so this is the global view of the open science ecosystem. You might recognize many of these stakeholders. We have addressed these stakeholders during these meetings in this morning: research infrastructures, research service providers, data providers, funding institutions, research institutions, and the competence centers. We still don't have these, but I will show that we have plans to have generic, thematic, and proximity competence centers, and these competences will help in. The idea is to help you and to work together with you in several subjects like verifying data, policies, data curation, training, and so on. So the other part besides the ecosystem are the layers, where in this slide you can see several types of layers. You have the government, funding organizations, research performing, and also the arenas where that's another layer, important layer in terms of infrastructure skills that we have addressed. By the way, this is from the Dutch organization. I cannot read, but ISCTE, it was a presentation done in the ISCTE, and I found it very informative. Anyway, we have also talked about the research phase, and Clara, for instance, mentioned that not only important to think about during, but before and after the project, what we are going to do with the data. So the challenges are tremendous in terms of governance, policies, what service to set up, and also the alignment with important bodies like ISCTE, RDA, and stuff like that. And also the sustainability, hopefully, and funding. We have been working and delivering national initiatives on several items, and we have some principles for the projects where we try to centralize the services and have centers of expertise for delivering the services, and this helps sustainability. Yeah, that's it. In terms of activities that we have been carrying out in terms of open science, many of you know this slide. I use it in many presentations. Of course, the focus of this presentation is the research data, and we started precisely many years ago with the Fórum, and also the massive online open courses. Then we started recently with a Poland initiative where we have a research data repository in pilot, not in full production. Also a research data plan for data management, and also PT-CRIS is very important in this initiative because it's key to have fair data, and therefore we will also make an effort on this item. So I would like also to share with you, I'm happy to share, I'm worried to share that we have significant, after looking for funds for research data, we were able to get a grant of 1.6 million euros for research data. The challenge is that we have to spend well the money until March 2026, so it's a very short period of time. And the main areas are infrastructures. For instance, we talked about Pedro mentioned one of the services that were most requested by researchers were storage. So we will work, there's a big chunk of money allocated to this. Then research data services, we also discussed in some meetings ago that the scope of the research data repository was going to be FCT only, but with this grant we are able to, we will study, but hopefully and probably we will open the research data repository to other services. We will also build competence centers and a consortia to coordinate these competence centers in terms of core activities, and also have some funds for use cases and demonstrators. Also work on alignment and fair data services, and that's it. Thank you.
Many thanks for all the presentation. So now, the floor is yours also to make questions, make comments, share your also views on this topic. I will also ask when you think about your questions and comments. I ask Curtis to comment a bit about our presentations and to compare with the work that other networks are doing, or even how useful can be some of the things that they are developing in Skills for IOSC for the work that we are doing. So Curtis, feel free to comment, and then I will ask you your comments and questions.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Pedro, and thank you guys for the presentations. Very good to hear what's planned. I would start with Clara, and I think it's a good idea to. I actually didn't know there was a free version of the RDNL course online, but I really think that's a good idea to get PhD students on that, because, for one thing, it prepares them for when they become postdocs or early career researchers, that they already have an idea of these things. Because I was also wondering, but is that so that they can support RDM at the university as well, or outside of their own work?
Yeah, some of them, yes.
Okay, yeah. So then you of course will have to retrain people all the time, because people come in and out the door as you go. So that'll be something to manage. One of the things though that I was thinking about, because the RDNL course is valuable, but it is the basis. And a lot of times people just feel like somewhere beyond that they need some more support that can be broadly thematic. Of course, we can't provide training for every single discipline. So, and I wanted to ask if you had any thoughts on that, as to how you might follow that up. Do you? As like going slightly beyond the basic broad training, because in different disciplines, different faculties, people have different needs. Is there anything for that in the university itself?
Yeah, our research areas are mostly in social science and humanities.
Yeah.
And I think that basic training will be very useful. Will be very, it's not, will be very useful.
Já estragamos a vida.
Not only PhD students, but our idea is to reach as well researchers that are initiating contract in our institution.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Is it too loud now? Because I was thinking, because one of the outputs from Skills for IOSC with Package 4 will be creating curricula that go a little bit beyond the basic training, which is something institutions might be able to use to build some sort of in-house training themselves. Yeah. So just to speak to that.
Yeah, we would like to have a mandatory, but I don't know if it is possible. But if not mandatory, we would like to recommend to all of these actors, the PhDs and the researchers initiating the contract to do the training course on this.
Is there going to be a sort of, I mean, these people will be data champions basically because they won't be getting paid to support their colleagues. Is that right?
Data champions.
Yeah, because the people who are the PhD students who you're giving or allowing them to have this basic training, they will not be paid to support. No. So you're going to have to create a sort of data champion community.
Okay. Yes.
And really motivate them and reward them. So I think
try to find incentives.
Yeah. So okay. So I would have. It's the data champion program at Cambridge where I was is a really good one, and within the open science community at TU Delft, they also have a good one. So okay. I also when with George. We have this issue as well at TU Delft. Okay, we have a good data steward program, but capacity is always more than that. And one of the things that they've been working on there is to create a business case for data stewardship. And I think because we all know the way, but I think that will be a good thing to put together, and probably we can talk to other colleagues across different institutions to work that out. And I just wanted to mention one of the things we're not mentioning, but we really need to consider software as well. Even I didn't mention it. We talk about data, but software, of course, is also important for that. So I thought this idea of, Pedro, of meeting with the research center directors to create champions out of them, that's an amazing idea, because a lot of times they don't want to listen to the other data champions who are usually junior people. So if you can achieve that, I would like to know how you do that, but that's a great idea. Yeah. And with the as far as with João, I think it's, as you say, it's tricky to have funding and infrastructure together, but I feel that works. And again, I wondered, because you talk about competence centers as well, and I just wondered how you viewed yourself as a competence center to support whatever is happening. Yeah, sort of like in reference to my talk. How would you see yourself as a competence center in supporting the data steward network?
The idea, we don't have at FCT enough resources, so we will have grants to help us manage. So it will be under our supervision, but we will have partners in executing this funding and all of this.
Okay. I will stop.
Musicians we have some time, so we need to work sessions. Then please take notes before final round. Any comment? Regarding what we are doing in our institutions. We don't have feedback anymore. Feel free to
other kind of feedback.
It's always a pleasure to have here we keep with the director from FCT-FCCN here from the opening session. Now we have also the board of FCT present. Sorry, Professor Francisco, which is great. Other comments? Feel free to share in also what are your limitations in your institution. If you if you accept this challenge from Jorge, that we need to have to build a network in Portugal to support each other, a network of data stewards. Okay, yes. Present yourself, please. We already know you, but...
My name is Inês Almeida from University of Coimbra. Thank you for all your input. My question is kind of a curiosity, because I didn't know this nomenclature of data champions as you. So the idea is that you mentioned them as volunteer. So the idea is, since that we don't have financial resources, this is kind of a solution for the problem. How do you see this integration of professionalization in these data champions? Thank you.
Let's have questions, and then we do a final round. Just take notes from the things about data champions is interesting. Any other questions, comments from your institutions, limitations? Feel free to comment. I think it's important. This is a panel, a discussion panel that can guide some of our future work on this. So share your thoughts. If not, we will go for a final round, and then...
I would like to
yes.
talk a little about the risks, but I mean, okay, now or later.
Just take notes and we do a final round. I think.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to the final round, and we can start with the Turkish replying about the championship.
Yeah, championship. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Inês. That's a really good question. So the Data Champions program was created first at Cambridge. I was not there, so it's not credit to me. It would actually credit to one of my former colleagues, Marta Taparek, who is now at the Dutch Research Council. So the problem, of course, was capacity, not just in terms of financial resources, but also in terms of addressing those people with particular needs in the different departments. And so the Data Champion program was created so that those who volunteer can assist if called upon by a colleague who would know something about their work. But sustaining that program it's quite a task. That's what I used to do at Cambridge as well. And there needs to be it's a community with a goal, like I mentioned before. So it takes a lot of motivation. There has to be a reward system in place and the structure, so that those who volunteer as data champions feel motivated to fulfill the role of advocacy and support. And usually a lot of people would jump and join in because they think it would look nice on their CV, but then they drop off again. So you also have to manage that sort of thing. And it does help. It still doesn't address the question sufficiently or anywhere near, but it does help. And within Delft, last thing I would say, within Delft, it's part of the open science community. So it's a subgroup within the open science community. So data champions can be students, they can be research support staff as well, librarians, anyone who really feels they can contribute to managing research data and helping their colleagues at the university.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go for a final round, and I ask the interventions of Jorge, João, and Clara. If you can also reply to the comments, but also if you can make some comments around, and those are three things that I took from the presentation. So how can we work on skills development, institutional commitment, and also any tips or contributions to the development of this network in Portugal. So, but
may I?
Feel free to add other comments, yes.
I would like just to discuss with you possible risks in doing this, because one that seems to me very real is the overlapping of time and effort in participating in so many meetings and working groups. And I think that could be a good idea to discuss within the community how to organize ourselves, to be comfortable in allocate time and effort to share our experience related to research data management. I think that we should anticipate and be prepared to deal with that situation, because We are already a very active community, a small country, and some of potential members of this network could be already members in other communities of practice. Secondly, the second risk that I've identified, I think that it could be very useful to find ways to reach out all the people who are responsible for advising researchers and on these issues, and people who are directly involved in research data management. Because in the Skills for IOSC project, they define data stewards, they define generic data, they make a difference between a generic data steward from an embedded data steward, and you have also data managers, and I think that could be a good idea to try to define what is a data steward very briefly. They define a generic data steward as someone who has an advisor role on guidelines, policy, on data management plans, and so on. And an embedded data steward is someone with that is directly involved in research data management, creating data management plans with a hands-on experience. A data manager is someone who work with researchers in define a technological strategy, finding best software to data analytics and so on. So I think that is important to try to define what is a data steward and try to identify these people on our institutions could be something that we can do. Finally, in our country, as far as I know, most people who have the role of data steward have a lot of other responsibilities, and we have mentioned this before. So I think that this fragmentation could make it difficult to create a community to share best practice. So the professionalization, of course, could help, but while we don't have a professionalization, this fragmentation could be a challenge, and I think that we should be prepared to deal with this. Thank you.
Two or three brief notes. Yes, we believe that the best way to do it is doing it. So eventually some specific special projects under the directory or some specific structures under the organic units might help. The skills, of course, can be acquired, but also can be trained on hands-on jobs. So the point is sometimes we think, at least our group, that we spent a lot of time reflecting on this, but we believe also that if we start doing something, eventually it will be easier to implement some new solutions. So saying that, of course, we have to underline the main and relevant role of PhD students, of course. This early stage has already been proved and shared on the previous section, already mentioned today, that this early stage of the data, this early stage of commitment, of course, will imply a new solution afterwards, because the responsible for the orientation of the PhD thesis, of course, will adhere to this more easily if the PhD student is already committed with it. So, of course, bring this to the early stage of research, for instance, under this PhD thesis is one of the main, well, let's say assets to invest on. Considering the committee of the universities, yes, my presentation actually was quite focused on this, so I won't add too much more. Already said it. Eventually, one of the more visible actions could be implementing some specific structure, a temporary one, giving time and training to the people to be working on. So one of the traps here is usually people tend to address these responsibilities to someone that is already doing something else and it was not actually hired for it, don't have the skills or the time to do it. So this is a trap we should avoid. So we have to hire someone which is or with champions, why not? PhD students or others, but mainly must have time to apply and also to get specific training. I recall something like 1 to 2 years that was sharing in the last presentation, in the last session, someone the best practice from Austria or something like this. So yeah, we have to have time to train people to actually then execute and provides a good service. Otherwise, it will be a trap. Considering the contributes to the network, I think we are doing our best. We are committed with this. A lot of us, if not all, is sharing our time with other things that we have to do because it's not our main job, this. And we are actually counting with a very relevant role of our national agency. I must underline this because we believe that, at least on this issue, we are making the right path because we are sharing the opportunities. We are one of the beneficiaries of this pilot strategy, and we believe this is the way. So the funding agencies, of course, will have to open the door to, for instance, some pilot projects or else, so we can also test makes this kind of test beds where we can actually stress out what will raise up when we are trying to do it, the day-to-day jobs. So hopefully also these already mentioned national competence centers, along with the European strategy, for instance, contributing to European competence centers, will contribute definitely not only to this kind of a national consortium, regional consortium, whatever, but also to strengthen up the competencies of all the agents related. So yeah, that's my idea at least. Thank you.
Okay, I forgot to mention, but probably if you see in the program that we will present a more detailed version of the program of the Resilience Fund tomorrow. I can say that it's a project that aims to benefit all of the attendees and also the research community. We are still fine-tuning the roadmap. In fact, we will probably have an installation committee to drill down the requirements. But at this stage, we see that we can contribute for the 3 things that have been mentioned, because we think it is important to have competence centers that address skills in terms of, we talked about Forster à Portuguesa, Portuguese Foster, which was a program for training in Europe. In terms of institutions, have policies, toolkits and stuff like that. Do not forget that we, at the national level, we stop where scale stops. So we can build toolkits, we can build, but then it's up to the institutions to do their work internally. And in terms of network, I think it fits on the alignment competence centers that I've mentioned with EOSC, with RDA and other important institutions. I still remember the first conference for research data. It was in Porto. I remember Baron Mons saying we have to reserve 5% of the amount of the project to curate and handle data. We're still not there, but hopefully we'll get there. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think we can close this session. So I think it was great to have this debate and to have some tips and some good materials that we can reuse from Skills for IOSC. I think the curricula, the kit that we have to the establishment of the network, I think it will be quite useful. We need to continue this discussion. So we have the working group on training where we dedicate some activity to the data stewardship series. So let's join this group and and work together. Curtis, any final remark? We are okay? Or?
I look forward forward to working further with you, with anyone here in Portugal, and developing the network further. And I just want to say also, I want to congratulate all of you on having these national forums 10 years running. I think it's amazing.
Yes. So yesterday Curtis already tasted Muscatel. We will have Muscatel moment, so you can have time to discuss directly with Curtis in that moment. So thank you very much all. So vamos agora mudar para português. Obrigado a todos. Devia ser este o momento para interrompermos, fazermos um break, mas nós vamos puxar pelas vossas forças, mantermos aqui todos juntos. Agora vai ser muito dinâmico, com os grupos de trabalho a apresentar os trabalhos e depois o póster One Minute Madness, um minuto de loucura a apresentar os pósteres. Portanto, chamo agora os convidados, os representantes dos grupos de trabalho para virem para aqui, juntarem-se aqui. O André Vieira já está aqui, a Emília Pacheco, da Universidade do Algarve, a Rita Gonçalves, da Universidade de Aveiro, o Filipe Pereira, da FCT-FCCN, a Rodrigues, da Universidade do Minho. Juntem-se aqui. Será um momento muito rápido, onde vamos destacar os resultados dos trabalhos que os grupos de trabalho estão a desenvolver. E com apresentações muito curtas. No final também vamos destacar o póster, porque se vocês virem lá fora, cada grupo de trabalho tem um póster que vocês podem ver e, portanto, no Muscatel de Honra também vão poder conversar com os representantes dos grupos de trabalho e discutir um bocadinho com eles e perceber que ações é que podem ser feitas. Depois iremos para o póster no minuto, que a Filipa Pereira irá moderar, e depois sim, temos um momento com calma, de networking, onde podemos conversar à vontade. Portanto, peço só aqui o vosso melhor esforço para se manterem aqui ativos neste momento da sessão dos grupos de trabalho. Liguem-se também ao vosso telemóvel, aos vossos computadores, para participarem aqui no Mentimeter. Está bem? Nós vamos abrir o Mentimeter e, portanto, se tiverem aí já na mão os vossos telemóveis, os computadores, vamos também pedir que deem alguns contributos, que reajam um bocadinho aos outputs que os grupos de trabalho têm e que são apresentados. Vocês podem ver, para além dos posters, lá fora, ali mesmo à entrada, têm muitos dos materiais que foram sendo feitos, impressos. As coisas estão todas disponíveis digitalmente, disponíveis numa coleção no Znode e também via o site do Fórum, mas podem ver muitos desses materiais já que resultam do trabalho dos grupos de trabalho disponível. Portanto, a ideia agora era destacar os 3 grupos de trabalho. Existe um grupo de formação e competências para a gestão de dados FCT, que depois tem várias linhas de ação. Depois o grupo de trabalho dos repositórios de dados, chamamos tecnologia, organização e certificação, que também tem linhas de ação, pelo menos 3 neste momento mais ativas, e as pessoas podem se juntar, podem participar simplesmente em reuniões mensais nestes grupos da formação e dos repositórios, ou fazer algum trabalho mais prático nessas linhas de ação. E o grupo de políticas, estratégias e recomendações de GDI, que já não reúne numa base já mensal, mas reúne periodicamente, e que poderão ver também o trabalho e a forma de participar. Portanto, liguem-se já então ao Mentimeter, menti.com, já está aberto o primeiro, sim, abre já o primeiro, não precisas de... Arranca, por exemplo. Só para tornar isto mais dinâmico, portanto, sintam-se à vontade para contribuir, enquanto as pessoas vão apresentando. A ideia é um bocadinho vocês reagirem. Podes avançar e põe isto nos slides. Ok. Pronto, a ideia é que vocês identificam 2 ou 3 resultados dos grupos de trabalho que considerem mais úteis e relevantes, ou que podíamos atualizar e que poderíamos melhorar a partir do que vai ser apresentado. Depois vai haver uma outra pergunta sobre... Ok, está um bocado lento. Sobre o que é que gostaria de fazer, se gostaria de fazer parte dos grupos de trabalho, e a outra é partilhar ideias. Portanto, estejam atentos, ok? Nós vamos abrir isto, para já está só aqui os 2 ou 3 resultados que vocês destacam, mas fiquem a par que nós vamos querer mais os vossos contributos. Pronto, eu me prolonguei um bocadinho só para dar tempo para o André conseguir fazer o setup de tudo aqui, e ele foi espetacular. Força, formação. Emília, és tu que mandas? É os repositórios, é a Rita que manda.
Sim, pronto, este é um dos grupos de trabalho do Fórum GDI, que é o repositório de dados. Os nossos objetivos são promover a melhoria dos serviços de repositórios, com especial foco para a certificação, para a interoperabilidade entre sistemas e também para a curadoria de metadados e vocabulários controlados. Outro dos nossos objetivos é sistematizar e divulgar à comunidade informações sobre funcionalidades e o papel que os repositórios desempenham nas instituições, os repositórios de dados. E depois também, de certa forma, contribuir criticamente para o desenvolvimento de uma estratégia nacional. Toda a informação do grupo de trabalho e também os resultados que vamos já apresentar de seguida estão na página do Fórum GDI, tem uma página dedicada a este grupo. Este grupo reúne mensalmente e tem estas 4 linhas de ação, como o Pedro já disse, 3 estão mais ativas, a última não tanto neste momento, mas pronto, a primeira linha de ação é o suporte aos investigadores para a publicação de dados em repositórios, a segunda linha é mais focada no papel dos gestores e curadores de dados, dos gestores de repositórios, com formação e documentação especialmente criada para eles, e aqui também se inserem os workshops que são realizados nos fóruns GDI. O outro foco é a interoperabilidade de repositórios e também a sua ligação com outros sistemas. E depois a última linha de ação são os metadados disciplinares. Ao longo destes anos nós temos vindo a partilhar aqui no Fórum alguns resultados e materiais de apoio criados no âmbito do grupo. Estes foram os resultados que nós já partilhámos convosco nos fóruns anteriores. São resultados de 2021 e 2022. Temos aqui alguns destaques. Pronto, temos infográficos, boletins informativos, guias de apoio e também análises comparativas. Este ano queremos partilhar convosco alguns novos resultados, alguns já muito recentes, outros já mais do início do ano, nomeadamente o infográfico sobre a partilha de código e de dados, os medos, as barreiras e as soluções que identificámos. Isto é uma adaptação de um conteúdo que já existia. Temos também um boletim informativo como identificar um repositório confiável. Achávamos que era uma informação pertinente a dar à comunidade. Também uma análise, ou melhor, uma lista de estándares de metadados e informação de suporte, com identificação de metadados disciplinares usados em Portugal. E também outra novidade de 2023 é uma reunião de casos de estudo de repositórios institucionais e temáticos. Pronto, temos o caso do Instituto Hidrográfico, o repositório de dados do Minho, o arquivo APIS, o Arquivo Português de Informação Social, o Biodata e o DUNAS, o repositório da Universidade de Aveiro. Pronto, e o nosso póster está... todos estes conteúdos estão na página do Fórum, também tem alguns conteúdos impressos ali na entrada, caso queiram consultar e levar, e temos também o nosso póster que reúne toda esta informação que partilhamos. Pronto.
Muito bem. Quanto ao grupo de trabalho de formação e competências para a gestão e dados FCT, as suas principais linhas gerais, alinhadas com os objetivos, é sobretudo contribuir para a capacitação dos diferentes intervenientes nesta Dados de Investigação, aqueles intervenientes que ainda agora acabamos de falar neste painel, apoiar a definição de estratégias de formação nas instituições, um pouco algumas das necessidades também já aqui identificadas hoje, e identificar as necessidades de competências para a aplicação dos dados FAIR. E para isso temos desenvolvido algumas ações ao longo da nossa atividade. Podem encontrar todos os resultados aqui neste link ou neste QR Code, e caso tenham interesse em fazer parte deste grupo para contribuir ou para acompanhar os desenvolvimentos, podem também fazer parte e são convidados. Estas são as 3 principais linhas de ação: desenvolver uma coleção de recursos de formação, promover iniciativas de formação e competências em GDI e dados FAIR, que vou apresentar agora mais em detalhe. Antes de apresentar estes resultados, para ficarem aqui com uma ideia da atividade do grupo. O grupo Por um lado, tem reuniões mensais, com vista a reunir a equipa, a fazer um ponto de situação dos trabalhos de cada uma das linhas de ação, partilhar estes desenvolvimentos, recolher contributos por parte também dos colegas, partilhar informações relevantes, por exemplo, partilha de novos recursos de formação, iniciativas que tenham conhecimento, ou seja, não é só uma reunião de trabalho, é também uma reunião para partilha de recursos relevantes na área da formação e capacitação na área dos dados feitos. No que diz respeito aos seus subgrupos operacionais, na prática vão dar corpo às linhas de ação que eu referi anteriormente. Temos neste momento 4 grupos operacionais, uns mais ativos do que outros. Temos o grupo da coleção de recursos, que na prática já desenvolveu 2 padlets, 2 coleções de recursos que nós consideramos que são relevantes para a aquisição de competências. Iniciativas de formação, que têm desenvolvido, por exemplo, algumas data talks, que são sessões de 30 minutos online, talvez alguns de vocês já participaram. Competências em Engenharia e Dados FAIR, que propôs e vai ser apresentado agora durante estes 2 dias um quadro de competências para Data Stewards e para todos aqueles que participam, não só para Data Stewards, mas para aqueles que participam no processo de Gestão de Dados de Investigação. E, por fim, um grupo associado a uma atividade que ainda agora foi falada pelo Pedro Príncipe, que é o ciclo sobre Data Stewardship em instituições. Aqui ficam alguns dos resultados. Mais em cima são 2 exemplos de coleções de recursos de formação. Este subgrupo vai tentando atualizar sempre que possível estas 2 coleções para que se mantenha atualizado, sempre que nós consigamos identificar recursos de formação relevantes a nível global, não são apenas portugueses, até a maioria são internacionais. As data talks, temos ali alguns exemplos das 3 últimas que realizamos. Tentamos convidar investigadores que já têm boas práticas de standards de investigação, seja, por exemplo, na anonimização dos dados, seja na criação de planos de dados, seja em programas de formação nas suas instituições. Já desenvolvemos 11 sessões desde 2021, já tivemos mais de 700 participantes, tem tido uma boa adesão por parte da comunidade, aqueles que fazem parte do grupo de trabalho, mas muito para além dos elementos do grupo de trabalho, e estamos a tentar apresentar a agenda para as próximas data talks, portanto mantenham-se atentos. E também no contexto das iniciativas de formação, desde 2021 temos vindo também a assegurar a realização de pelo menos um workshop de autoria do nosso grupo de trabalho. Amanhã teremos um workshop para apresentarmos e discutirmos os desafios e as boas práticas de Data Stewardship. Teremos 2 convidados, 2 investigadores de instituições portuguesas que vão apresentar os seus casos práticos de desempenho desta função, de Data Steward, que não é só Data Stewards, são investigadores, são uma série de atividades, como aqui também agora acabamos de falar. Vêm apresentar as suas boas práticas, que desafios é que fazem face. Numa segunda parte apresentaremos, já estou aqui a fazer publicidade ao workshop para que vocês participem amanhã. Na segunda parte iremos apresentar a proposta de quadro de competências para os intervenientes na Gestão de Dados de Investigação e queremos depois ouvir os participantes sobre a sua adequabilidade ao contexto português. Nós tivemos por base um modelo de competências já apresentado, fizemos um estudo prospectivo que iremos detalhar com maior pormenor e queremos também que os participantes possam discutir este quadro, que possam também refletir sobre os desafios e as necessidades que existem no país para podermos capacitar os profissionais, não só data stewards, mas todos aqueles profissionais que intervêm no processo de Gestão de Dados de Investigação. Outros dos resultados. A minha colega Emília Pacheco vai falar um pouco sobre ele.
É só para dar uma ideia dinâmica. Vens tu, depois venho eu. Pronto, está tudo dito. É uma tabela de competências que nós já... que o grupo está a desenvolver, que desenvolveu durante algum tempo. No fórum anterior apresentámos à discussão, submetemos à discussão pública E agora temos a versão final. Basicamente, amanhã vamos fazer a sua apresentação e convidamos todos a participarem no workshop com estas competências que poderemos discutir e ver como se podem aplicar. Em relação ao outro resultado, também já foi dito, até foi explicado pelo Pedro, toda o seu entorno. Convidamos todas as pessoas também a participarem. Já se realizou uma das sessões, mas pelo menos mais 2 ou 3 estão em agenda e a primeira foi bastante interessante, e no final a produção de um relatório será o objetivo, com os tópicos de aprendizagem de todas estas sessões. E convidamos todos a verem o nosso póster, que está também ali disponível.
Então, boa tarde novamente. Cabe-me a mim agora fazer o encerramento da sessão de grupos com o último grupo de trabalho, que foi criado em terceiro lugar e que respeita às políticas, estratégias e recomendações de gestão de dados de investigação. A criação deste grupo surgiu porque, de facto, havia ainda há uma preocupação premente em relação à importância do estabelecimento de estratégias e planos de intervenção para a gestão de dados de investigação, e também a necessidade de compreender mais a fundo a emergência dos dados FES e também avaliar as próprias instituições em relação ao cumprimento dos princípios FES. Detectámos desde logo alguns desafios e algumas lacunas, entre os quais já foram até mencionados previamente e também são do conhecimento da comunidade, nomeadamente a questão do diferente nível de maturidade nas próprias instituições no que se refere à gestão de dados de investigação, também a preocupação que existe da criação de awareness junto dos investigadores em relação à adoção das boas práticas e, por último, muito importante, a necessidade de haverem serviços e infraestruturas de apoio. E, portanto, foi criado este grupo com estes 3 objetivos gerais que aqui estão descritos e que basicamente se focam na dinamização aqui de ações de apoio para se estabelecerem estratégias e políticas institucionais e também, de alguma forma, encontrarmos mecanismos que possam fazer aqui uma avaliação da fairness dos dados, identificar também os tais serviços para apoiar a GDI e o cumprimento dos dados FES e, por último, haver aqui uma preocupação de discussão e alinhamento das estratégias do ponto de vista institucional, também com as políticas e requisitos dos financiadores. E, portanto, neste âmbito, enquanto grupo, focámos aqui em 4 grandes linhas de ação, a primeira das quais relativa às políticas institucionais de referência, e nós aqui fizemos um trabalho, um levantamento de instituições de referência que já têm políticas bem consolidadas e adotadas, e, portanto, construímos uma matriz com uma informação diversificada neste ponto, e depois, pegando nesta informação, criámos um quadro de referência, portanto, era também um dos objetivos do grupo, ter um modelo que pudesse servir à comunidade, para as instituições que pretendem criar as suas políticas, também de alguma forma prestar apoio listando algumas ferramentas para um autodiagnóstico no que se refere à gestão de dados de investigação e à fairness dos dados, e por último, que tem sido um ponto de ação que tem demorado um pouco mais, mas que está agora a ganhar forma, que é um inquérito que vai ser divulgado junto da comunidade para fazer uma avaliação então da gestão de dados de investigação a nível nacional, portanto, nas instituições de investigação e desenvolvimento. Em termos de resultados concretos, nós estivemos a fazer uma avaliação de várias ferramentas, aqui estão mencionadas 3, toda esta informação já agora aproveito para referir que consta na página do Fórum e também está no póster. 3 ferramentas que achamos úteis são uma ferramenta que é o LAN, que permite verificar a prontidão que as instituições têm no cumprimento e na gestão dos dados FES. Também uma outra ferramenta muito interessante que cobre não só as chamadas RPOs, as Research Performance Organizations, mas também os próprios financiadores em termos de sustentabilidade dos dados de investigação, e depois também uma outra ferramenta ferramenta que até serviu de base a um café com dados do Fórum GDI, que é o do iPass for Fair, que é muito interessante e rapidamente se consegue fazer um diagnóstico também desta prontidão. As tais políticas ou instituições de referência que nós utilizamos para consultar constam neste slide, portanto focamos-nos nestas 6 que aqui estão mencionadas: a Universidade de Gant, também a Universidade de Amsterdão, a Universidade de Cambridge, Louvain, TU Delft, e depois também saímos aqui da Europa e fomos para Singapura, onde existem políticas e também serviços muito avançados em termos de gestão de dados de investigação, e decidimos também diversificar esta análise. E, portanto, com base nesta análise destas políticas, construímos então uma matriz com uma informação sintetizada. Esta análise das políticas focou-se também em grupo, houve esta discussão de fazer precisamente a seleção de pontos-chave que criam muitas vezes dúvidas junto das equipas, e portanto fizemos uma seleção prévia dos pontos que queríamos aprofundar e que são de facto também os que aqui constam, e pegando nestes pontos, onde se inclui por exemplo a propriedade dos dados, que é sempre algo que causa algumas dúvidas, a questão do armazenamento tão importante, da retenção e por aí fora, fizemos depois também uma alocação de responsabilidades dentro das instituições. Portanto, tentámos de alguma forma fazer um mapeamento de quem poderia assumir a responsabilidade de algumas destas áreas. E, portanto, com base nesta informação, como já tive a oportunidade de referir, construímos então uma proposta de estrutura para uma política de gestão e partilha de dados. É um modelo base, pronto, que eu obtive aqui a aprovação por parte da Clara, para mencionar que, por exemplo, o ISCTE também consultou esta informação, e a Clara também faz parte deste grupo, e portanto já teve utilidade e esperamos obviamente que tenha mais utilidade, e também convido as instituições que tiverem a preparar e a planear a preparação da sua política para consultarem. E também que em termos de resultados fizemos um workshop no 8º Fórum de Gestão de Dados de Investigação, focado nesta questão das políticas, onde também fizemos precisamente a apresentação deste trabalho que acabei de referir, e chegamos então agora à altura do inquérito, um inquérito focado na gestão de dados de investigação, em que neste momento está a decorrer uma fase piloto, onde fizemos uma consulta às instituições membro dos participantes no nosso grupo de trabalho, que são 8, e em relação às quais estamos a receber os dados, e vamos tentar de alguma forma validar o guião para podermos então avançar de uma forma mais ampla junto do ponto de vista nacional das várias instituições de ID. E, portanto, só para finalizar, este inquérito tem várias vertentes, uma focada na organização, outra também na parte então de estratégia institucional e políticas, infraestruturas e serviços, a avaliação de recursos que existem a nível das instituições e, por último, também fazendo aqui a ponte de acordo com aquilo que tivemos a verificar agora no painel temático, a avaliação das competências e efetivamente o que é que existe em termos de recursos nas instituições. E, por último, convido-vos também a visitar o 14º póster do nosso grupo, e em nome de todos os membros, temos aqui vários participantes do grupo de trabalho, agradeço imenso o trabalho e convido, obviamente, quem se quiser juntar a aderir também a este grupo. Muito obrigado.
Como vê, a comunidade está ativa e, portanto, é extraordinário. Temos que tirar o slide. Ok, já está ali. Obrigado aqui pelos vossos contributos também, aqui com um bom número de respostas para identificar os 2 ou 3 resultados dos grupos de trabalho que consideram mais úteis. Temos aqui a questão das políticas, o que foi agora apresentado, talvez as orientações, que acho que é bastante útil e de certeza que não foi só útil para o ISCTE, já poderão outras ter usado. Os casos de estudo também estão ali identificados, depois várias outras identificações de formação, partilha, interoperabilidade, boas práticas, excelente os recursos de formação, os boletins informativos também estão ali. Magnífico, muito obrigado aqui pelos vossos contributos e por esta partilha, sempre é uma forma de estes recursos serem úteis. Portanto, o que é mais destacar aqui dos grupos de trabalho é que eles são importante, portanto, resultam, e há estes resultados que são apresentados aqui, mas o processo às vezes é que é o mais importante, as pessoas acabam por aprender para produzir aqueles relatórios, aqueles materiais, aprenderam muito, e depois também o facto de haver partilha é espetacular. 62 respostas, já estamos aqui num bom nível. Portanto, muito obrigado. Fica aberto agora, não precisamos de despender aqui muito tempo, mas fica aberto aqui o vosso input. Deixamos isto aberto até ao final perto do final do Moscatel de Honra, para partilharem ideias, coisas que os grupos poderiam fazer, coisas que vocês viram noutros lados e que achavam interessante que pudessem ser linhas de ação para os grupos de trabalho. Formação, repositórios e políticas. Ou até, se quiserem, sugerir a criação de um novo grupo, também podem fazer. O que é preciso é juntarmos depois mão de obra, não é? Portanto, sintam-se à vontade para se inscreverem, basta irem ao site e mandarem uma mensagem, depois são integrados numa mailing list e a partir daí começam a entrar na lógica de funcionamento, acesso a uma pasta na Drive, onde são materiais, e entrar na calendarização das reuniões. Mais algum destaque aos coordenadores? Excelente. Fica aberto aqui isto para vocês contribuírem. E muito obrigado a todos os membros do grupo pela atividade, são muitos aqui, e pela dedicação e o esforço em estabelecer isto é um embrião de coisas magníficas, é já uma realidade, mas é um embrião de outras coisas que nós podemos criar, e acho que é muito bom estar tão ativo e com tantos resultados úteis. Muito obrigado.
Então, muito bem, estamos quase a finalizar o nosso dia de trabalho, mas antes vamos ter pela primeira vez no Fórum uma nova sessão, que é o póster no minuto, para criarmos aqui alguma dinâmica e para de facto conseguirmos também cumprir com os timings. Eu ia pedir aos oradores que vão fazer a apresentação dos pósteres que se tentassem localizar aqui mais perto do púlpito. Como a audiência está um bocadinho parada e nós vamos ter aqui a apresentação num minuto, nós vamos ter um timer, e isto não é para criar pressão a quem vai fazer a apresentação, mas pedimos aqui a colaboração quando estivermos, portanto, aqui a chegar, portanto, a um minuto, haver aqui uma salva de palmas para alertar os oradores. Enquanto se estão aqui também a instalar, como já tiveram a oportunidade de ver, os pósteres estão fixados nos placares lá fora, portanto, entre hoje e amanhã poderão com mais calma também ver a informação e terão certamente também possibilidade de falar com os autores dos trabalhos que vão estar expostos. Só aqui, em termos de logística, eu faço a apresentação, portanto, do tema do póster, dos autores, e chamo, e portanto só no momento em que, obviamente, estiverem aqui disponíveis para começar a falar é que o tempo começa, está bem? Portanto, sem pressão. Está tudo pronto? E a audiência também está pronta aqui para ajudar aqui um bocado? Sim. Está tudo muito parado, vamos lá. Então vamos começar aqui com um primeiro trabalho que tem o título de Explorando automatização na revisão de literatura com suporte de inteligência artificial generativa na gestão de dados de investigação, e temos aqui 3 autores, a Marina Araújo, Júlia Araújo, Marco Araújo, da Universidade Federal Juiz de Fora, Centro Universitário Academia Brasil. Não sei se são familiares, mas... Temos então, seria a Marina. Marina. Pronta?
Boa tarde, meu nome é Marina Araújo. O meu trabalho ele visa apoiar os pesquisadores com a revisão e o mapeamento da literatura, visto que é um trabalho muito custoso, porque com a crescente quantidade de artigos acadêmicos e trabalhos acadêmicos das bases de dados, esse trabalho fica muito custoso. Então, a gente fez um sistema todo encadeado, onde onde a inteligência artificial generativa ela vai apoiar essa pesquisa, e a gente viu que os resultados foram muito significativos. A inteligência artificial ela vai fornecer palavras-chave, palavras, sinônimos, que vão ajudar a construir uma string de busca eficiente para a sua pesquisa. E dessa forma também vão criar mapa de palavras, ver quais são os autores proeminentes no assunto que você está pesquisando, e também verificar a qualidade dessa sua pesquisa. Então a gente viu que foi muito relevante, porque ajudou muito os pesquisadores que a gente fez a pesquisa e realmente diminuiu o tempo e os custos. Obrigada.
Muito obrigada. Nós sabemos que é um bocadinho desafiante, mas a Marina também estará certamente lá fora, se for necessário mais algum esclarecimento. Vamos então passar para o segundo póster, que tem o nome de Explorando automatização na análise estatística com suporte de inteligência artificial generativa na gestão de dados de investigação, e desta feita será a Júlia Araújo, porque são o mesmo conjunto de autores, será a Júlia Araújo a fazer a apresentação do póster. Júlia?
Boa tarde, meu nome é Júlia Araújo e o meu trabalho ele visa utilizar a inteligência artificial generativa para apoiar investigadores nas análises estatísticas em seus estudos exploratórios, tendo em vista que a sua grande importância e também a grande quantidade de dados que deve ser analisada. Dessa forma, utilizamos uma engenharia de prompt para apoiar, para ajudar a inteligência artificial a seguir os passos adequados, e também para definir qual seria o teste mais adequado em determinada situação. Então, dessa forma, ao longo do nosso estudo, foram realizados vários testes com bases de dados reais e obtivemos resultados significativos. Muito obrigada pela atenção e estarei lá fora junto ao meu pôster para esclarecer possíveis dúvidas. Obrigada.
Júlia já estabeleceu aqui um recorde. Vamos lá. Então, vamos ter agora o póster, o contributo da meta-informação para o crescimento da exploração das energias renováveis marinhas em Portugal. Os autores são Ana Raquel Melo, Aurora Bizarro, ambas do Instituto Hidrográfico, e teremos connosco aqui a Ana Raquel Melo. Bem-vinda.
Bem, eu pertenço à Divisão de Geologia Marinha do Instituto Hidrográfico. Nós trouxemos como exemplo uma área ao largo de Lisboa, embora não tenha sido uma área selecionada para as eólicas, mas o importante é mostrar a importância da meta-informação para o conhecimento do fundo marinho, podendo ser uma boa ferramenta para a gestão, para o planeamento e para uma tomada de decisão em qualquer projeto, prestação de serviços.
Eu arriscava dizer que os autores estão a ficar com medo das palmas, não é preciso. Não exagerem, não exagerem. Temos agora o projeto Hidrográfico Mais, repositório de dados do Instituto Hidrográfico. São autoras Margarida Alves, Sara Almeida, do Instituto Hidrográfico. Vamos lá.
Boa tarde, o meu nome é Margarida Alves, venho aqui apresentar o repositório de dados do Instituto Hidrográfico, que é uma infraestrutura geoespacial de dados marinhos e que facilita o acesso dos cidadãos aos dados adquiridos por este Instituto e aos produtos, seguindo as normas ISO 19115 e 19119, o INSPIRE e o GDC. Apresentamos assim uma nova ferramenta que nos permite explorar e analisar dados. Neste caso vai ser específico, são perfis de velocidade de som. Também é possível fazer uma pesquisa dos dados recolhidos por este Instituto, por exemplo, os dados da rede de monitorização, como as boias e os marégrafos. Também é possível selecionar alguns tipos de dados, que neste caso é os levantamentos batimétricos, e onde é possível aceder a esta meteoinformação, e é possível descarregar dados adquiridos por o nosso Instituto, através do portal do Hidrográfico Mais.
Muito bem. E vamos ter novamente a Margarida, agora com gestão de dados no Instituto Hidrográfico, o caso do projeto Aquimar. Vamos lá.
Então, o projeto Aquimar foi um projeto é um projeto multidisciplinar que decorreu entre os anos 2018 e 2020 e pretendemos mostrar neste póster o processo de gestão de informação. Este projeto tivemos 4 campanhas que foram realizadas em 5 zonas e 4 campanhas também estuarinas realizadas em 4 zonas. Na aquisição dos dados de mar foram adquiridos 180 amostras por cada campanha e nas estações estuarinas foram feitas 40 nas 4 zonas. Foram feita uma análise de parâmetros ambientais. Também os dados adquiridos foram analisados em laboratório, onde foi feito um controle analítico e um controle onde foi introduzido um controle de qualidade destes dados adquiridos. Houve também uma harmonização desta meteoinformação e a criação das fichas de metadados e todos os dados estão partilhados nos repositórios internos e europeus.
Vamos agora para a Universidade de Coimbra. O tema é Ciência Aberta e Gestão de Dados de Investigação na Universidade de Coimbra. São autores Catarina Domingues, Ana Santos Carvalho, Jorge Noro. E será a Catarina a fazer a apresentação. Força, Catarina. Eu pedia-vos só para tentarem falar mesmo perto do microfone, para não haver, e para não prestar também entendidos. Desculpa. Tem que ser mesmo ao microfone. Peço desculpa que este timer não está a funcionar, não está a querer colaborar, só um momento. Não está a funcionar, isto ficou sem efeito. Eu vou fazer a contagem aqui deste lado, não está a funcionar este. Vamos, força, Catarina.
Boa tarde a todos e a todas. Este póster teve como principal objetivo conhecer o panorama nacional no que diz respeito às boas práticas de ciência aberta e GDI. Para isso foi aplicado um questionário elaborado pelo Grupo de Trabalho Políticas, Estratégias e Recomendações GDI a 6 instituições de ensino superior, onde foi também incluída a Universidade de Coimbra. Analisando 5 indicadores específicos, nós concluímos que é necessário a harmonização de políticas, estratégias e procedimentos para que seja possível uma boa prática no que diz respeito à ciência aberta e à gestão de dados de investigação ao nível das instituições de ensino superior. E pronto, foi isto. Se quiserem conhecer mais, póster 6. Obrigada.
As pessoas ficam nervosas com e sem timers. E agora estou aqui só a ver se temos algum... Agora temos... não, agora já está bem. Houve aqui um problema com este póster, mas está tudo ok. Muito bem, então vamos agora para a implementação de práticas de gestão de dados de investigação no ensino superior, um estudo de caso. São autores Mafalda Lopes, Francisco Vieira, Miguel Padilha, da Escola Superior de Enfermagem do Porto, e também contribuição da Iúlia Karimova, do ISCTE. E será então a Mafalda a fazer a apresentação. O microfone, está bem?
Boa tarde a todos e a todas. Isto foi um teste de implementação, de análise, foi um pouco tudo ao mesmo tempo. Fizemos o trabalho de casa, identificando necessidades e os contextos, o contexto em que estamos. Trata-se da Escola Superior de Enfermagem do Porto e, portanto, um domínio específico de investigação, para o qual, para além daquelas necessidades, fizemos um levantamento da realidade, quantos projetos, quantos investigadores, para o efeito. Acabamos por criar uma comunidade no Zenodo que nos permite já publicar alguns documentos informativos e de divulgação de resultados, e fomos resgatar aqui um conceito à física, não dividindo para termos densidade, mas somando as partes para termos a densidade da informação resultante de investigação, e para tanto seria necessário efetivamente o Data Steward. Portanto, estamos a combater para que ele surja oficialmente. Muito obrigada.
Vamos então avançar E temos agora então capacitação para a gestão de dados de investigação e dados FER, a Escola de Inverno de Dados Abertos da Universidade do Minho. São autores Pedro Príncipe, André Vieira, Paula Moura, Antónia Correia, da Universidade do Minho, e mais uma vez também aqui a contribuição da Júlia Karimova, do ISCTE. E será então a Antónia a fazer a apresentação. Muito bem, vamos lá.
Boa tarde a todos, o meu nome é Antónia Correia, venho em representação do nosso grupo falar-vos sobre a Escola de Inverno de Dados Abertos. Esta escola faz parte da nossa capacitação para a gestão de dados de investigação na Universidade do Minho e pretende, acima de tudo, capacitar os investigadores e os alunos de doutoramento. Para tal, nós fazemos esta escola anualmente. Portanto, ela é feita durante a Love Data Week, em fevereiro, e nesta primeira escola nós fizemos a escola durante 2 tardes, tem sempre a mesma estrutura, portanto a primeira parte teórica muito breve e depois em formato workshop para testar as ferramentas e apresentamos a ferramenta para elaborar planos de gestão de dados, portanto o OpenDMP porta aberta e também o Data Repositório da Universidade do Minho, no qual nós gostaríamos que os alunos de doutoramento também colocassem os seus dados. Podem saber mais lá fora, portanto eu estarei à disposição para responder. Obrigada.
Vamos agora para um póster do grupo de trabalho das competências. Portanto, o título do trabalho são 4 competências para a gestão de dados, investigação e dados FER, e são autores Filomena Borba, André Vieira, Pedro Príncipe, António Correia, Simone Dib, Emília Pacheco, do grupo que já referi, e será a Filomena a fazer a apresentação. Força, Filomena.
Obrigada. Bom, como nós já tivemos a discutir aqui no painel, identificamos uma série de competências através de um documento da EOSC, essencialmente que foi um estudo que fizeram. Nós tentamos adaptar isso ao nosso contexto português e chegamos a esta tabela, tendo em conta as competências, chaves também, e também os perfis de cada um dos papéis ou dos atores que vão trabalhar no contexto da gestão de dados de investigação. Os papéis são o investigador, o curador de dados ou o administrador de dados, o Research Support Staff, portanto o pessoal de apoio à investigação, e também os informáticos ou técnicos de informática. Uma coisa a destacar, cada um desses papéis devem ter competências, que tipo de competências ou que tipo de skills eles devem ter. Obrigada.
Temos lá fora os pósteres afixados, não há problema, é isso mesmo. Vamos agora para as comissões de ética em saúde e o acesso de dados de investigação, portanto um trabalho da Cláudia Conceição e também da nossa querida Salima, da Universidade Nova de Lisboa, e será a Salima a fazer aqui a apresentação. Vamos lá.
Bem, boa tarde. Neste póster apresentam-se essencialmente 2 assuntos que colocam desafios à gestão de dados de investigação no contexto da saúde: os compromissos assumidos com os participantes dos estudos e o acesso a registros clínicos para investigação. O facto de não existirem políticas institucionais que sirvam de suporte ao cumprimento dos compromissos assumidos com os participantes e à preservação e reutilização de dados faz com que profissionais, nomeadamente das comissões de ética e os gestores de repositórios, não saibam como atuar. A interpretação também das diversas legislações envolvidas pode levar a muitas interpretações e não autorização ao acesso a dados para fins de investigação. Ainda ontem a nossa Presidente da Comissão de Ética, em conversa comigo, disse: Salima, destruir dados está nas nossas mãos, mas preservar dados é que não. Como é que nós, bibliotecários e gestores de repositórios, podemos trabalhar em conjunto com as comissões de ética para respondermos a estes desafios? Deixo isto à vossa reflexão também.
Bem, e estamos praticamente a chegar ao fim. Temos agora então o nosso póster, portanto aqui o último, que é o MOOC essencial de gestão de dados de investigação, resultados e as novidades da 3ª edição, e teremos aqui o Pedro para fazer a apresentação. Força, Pedro.
Convido a verem este póster com os detalhes. Possivelmente muitos de vocês conhecerão. O MOOC foi dinamizado já há 3 anos, há 2 anos, e está também neste momento em divulgação. Os números já de inscritos já são bastante surpreendentes, já ultrapassaram os 1000, também já ultrapassaram os 100 pessoas que obtiveram o certificado de conclusão dos 6 módulos. Portanto, divulguem nas vossas instituições que este MOOC está disponível. Nós vamos tentar agora também dinamizar um bocadinho mais essa divulgação. Os números são interessantes e também junto dos que estão inscritos procurar que eles utilizem também as férias de Natal para concluírem o MOOC, que é sempre interessante. Portanto, conto com a vossa divulgação, poderei dar mais detalhes lá fora sobre o MOOC e a bonecadazinha aqui associada. Obrigado.
Muito bem. Então terminamos hoje o dia de trabalho, vamos ter agora direito aqui a um moscatelzinho e portanto esperamos que se possam juntar. Não se vão já embora, era importante fazer aqui um pequeno convívio, se puderem então juntar, agradecemos. Muito obrigado.